What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Comic Flashback. I'm Marvel the Cross 316, and today, folks, we are looking at Amazing Spider-Man issue number 100. That's right, the 100th anniversary issue, folks. We finally have made it to issue number 100. And I'm so happy to cover this issue today. This issue will be like something we've never seen before. And so let's go ahead now and look at this grand 100th anniversary issue. And so, as always, we got to give credit where credit is due. This issue is brought to you by Stan Lee, who wrote this issue. We have the artwork by Jill Kane and the embellishment by Frank Giashoa. So now let's go ahead and get started. Today's title is The Spider or the Man? That's the big question in this 100th anniversary issue. We see that Spider-Man is swinging through the city here, just trying to see if he can do some stuff. He's thinking about Gwen and how Gwen has now come back home and they have gotten back together, as we saw from last issue in issue 99. All of a sudden, we see that Spider-Man comes across these gunmen racing out of a bank, and they're firing behind them. And so it doesn't take a genius to know what that adds up to. We see a police officer is going to try to stop these guys, these gunmen, and the guys start to grab a hold of their guns. And we see here that Spider-Man is going to take away their guns with his webbing here. He's, oh man, look out, it's Spider-Man. Hey, the flat-foot winged Benny, let's get out of here. Spider-Man is going to make quick work of these guys right here. So what's the hurry, group? We're just getting to know each other. And then we see one guy tries to get away. So, well, the gent in the getaway car suddenly remembered an appointment. But we mustn't make him feel unwanted. So Spider-Man webs up a web here, and that's going to stop this car in its tracks here. And the guy gets out of his car and says, okay, wall crawler, you had your fun, but even Spider-Man ain't bulletproof. And he said, I don't have to be. You'll never hit me. So we see Spider-Man take care of that guy. The police round up the criminals, and Spider-Man is going to go on his merry way. And he says, well, I'd better get moving before they try to nail me for vagrancy too. And he's like, you know what? It's funny. I didn't get as much of a charge out of tackling those jokers as I used to. Even swinging around town this way isn't the same old kick. I might as well face it. I'm just plain bored. And so that's what Spider-Man's going to be dealing with in this issue. He's like, I just don't see a purpose in being Spider-Man anymore now that Gwen Stacy is back in my life. And so what he's going to do is he's like, maybe I'm finally growing up at last. Maybe I'm beginning to realize there's more to life than being a corny costume clown. And maybe I'm just starting to realize it because of the way I feel about Gwen. Ever since we're back together again, I can't get her out of my mind. So I might as well admit it. I know what I want, and Gwen Stacy is it. So he's going to race back to his apartment, and what he's going to do then is he's like, I'm glad that Harry's back or still in the hospital. We know that Harry Osborn went to the hospital because he overdosed with drugs. And we see here that Peter Parker has been working on this formula here to change him back to the normal Peter Parker before he was bitten by Spider-Man. And he basically says Spider-Man must die. He said, I've been working on this project for years, ever since I first got my spider powers, because I could never be sure that my radioactive blood wouldn't become dangerous. I never knew when I might need a potion to make me normal once again. He said, I finished it months ago and always kept it ready, but there's just one problem. I've no way to test it. I'll be taking a chance, but any risk will be worth it for Gwen. So he drinks this potion here, and all of a sudden he's going to feel the effects of this, and he's going to collapse on his bed here, and he's going to live through one of the worst nightmares he's ever lived. where he recalls the death of Uncle Ben and how he was at the funeral with Aunt May. And he's going to remember how way back early in this volume, we saw that he had a big crush on Betty Brant. And he said, if not for being Spider-Man, I'd won her instead of Ned Leeds. But he said, but now it's Gwen I truly love, and when her father died, I almost lost her too. Will she always blame me for Captain Stacy's death? Why must everything I touch end in tragedy, and those I love are always hurt the most? And this is where some of Spider-Man's classic villains are going to show up in his dream. The first villain that shows up is the Vulture. And the Vulture has basically said, Spider-Man, your time has come at last. And there's something that's going on inside of Peter Parker's dream here. Someone is calling out for help. And so Spider-Man in this issue is trying to figure out who is crying for help, who is asking for help. And it's someone he knows. The voice is very familiar. So Spider-Man is going to come up against villain after villain. First the Vulture, then it's going to be the Lizard here. And just one villain after the next here, and it seems like each villain knows the tragic life of Spider-Man and how everything he loves and touches seems to die. That's part of this issue as well. Spider-Man is he's like, my life cannot be a waste. It can't. The next villain he goes up against is the Green Goblin. And like I said, all of these villains seem to know about Spider-Man's tragic life and the things he's had to witness. The death of Captain George Stacy, the death of Uncle Ben, trying to hide his secret from the people that he loves the most, like Aunt May, Gwen Stacy, Mary Jane Watson. It's a tragic, very tragic nightmare that he's going through. So he gets through those three villains. The next villain he has to go up against is Dr. Octopus. And he says, anything can happen to someone like you, someone whose whole life has been a fraud and a lie. And Spider-Man's like, no, it isn't true. It isn't. It can't be. He said, I had to do it. I had to be Spider-Man. I had no choice. I got my powers by accident. But once I had it, I couldn't stand by and not use it. Why can't anyone understand? He said, but why won't I face the fact that even I don't understand? All I do is fight. But for what? He said, oh man, his sides are starting to hurt here. And he's feeling this inside of his dream. But this is going on in real life. Something's going on in his sides. And he gets up, and then he's going to have to go up against the Kingpin here. And so one villain after the next, Spider-Man makes quick work of these guys in his dream. He's like, who is calling me? It's like some man's voice is calling me. He soon realizes that it's Gwen's father, Captain Stacy. And Captain Stacy says, listen to me, Peter. I know your secret. I know who you really are and what you are. But the tragedy is that you don't really know. Spider-Man's like, but you're dead. How can I hear you? And Captain Stacy says, even a voice that's been stilled can be heard if only you listen. You've been given great power, and you've tried to use it for good. No man could do more. There have been others with power, others who tried, yet they too were jeered, misunderstood, hated, and finally destroyed. You have tortured yourself by trying to live a normal life, but you cannot. You must accept that fact. You are Spider-Man. It is your blessing and your curse, forever. Say, oh, wait, Captain Stacy, don't go, please. Peter Parker finally wakes up. He said, man, that was one of the craziest dreams I've ever had to dream up. And so he's like, oh man, my sides are still hurting. What the heck is going on? So Peter Parker takes off his shirt here, and when he does, he realizes that he has grown 4 extra arms. So what the heck is this? This is the effect of taking that potion without testing it out, and now Peter Parker has to deal with the fact that he now has four extra arms, folks. So how is Peter Parker going to deal with this dilemma? We'll have to find all this out, folks, in issue number 101. Hope to see you there, folks. And as always, give this video a like, comment down below what you thought about this issue, subscribe if you have not, and I will see y'all in the next one.